Determination also makes you work hard and become relentless. Because when you're determined and you want to get your goal, you start working harder and you become relentless. And you say, oh, the failures that I had, that doesn't matter. I'm going to be relentless. I'm going to push through this thing until I reach the goal I want to get. And it also helps you find a way to get your desires. The difference between someone that's determined and someone that's not determined is that a determined person doesn't sit down and wait for their goals to come to them. They don't wait for that job opportunity to come to them. They don't wait for the good grades to come to them. They go out and they get the good grades and they find ways for them to reach their desires and their goals. And their goals, they find a way to get their goals. And that's the big difference between a determined person and someone that's not determined. So how does this relate to prayers, and how will this help us receive our blessings? We need to be determined and persistent when we're praying to God, because sometimes answers don't come on the first day. There are many people in the Bible that had to ask God for years before they received answers to their prayers. As we talked about before, determination leads to success. And when we're asking God for a breakthrough, we want to be successful with it. So in order to attain the blessings and miracles that we need and want, we need to be persistent and determined. The reason people fail is not because they don't ask God for something. It's because they don't keep asking if they don't receive it, they don't keep asking. If they don't receive it, they just stop and they give up. They don't keep on asking God for that answer to their prayer. And the reason people fail is also because they keep jumping from one project to another project. They're not focused on what they want. They don't even know what they want. So God can't answer a prayer to someone that doesn't know what they want. You have to ask God what you want. You have to keep asking until you get it. In Matthew 7:7, the Bible says, "Ask and it shall be given unto you." But it never specifies how many times you must ask God before he answers your prayer. The problem with some people is not that they don't ask God, like I said, is that it's because they don't keep on asking God if they don't receive their prayer. The problem is that they ask once, and if they don't receive their prayer, they stop. They're not determined enough to keep asking until God answers their prayer. They stop asking if their prayer is not answered the first time. An example of this is with your parents. Your parents, sometimes you have to ask multiple times before you get something. You ask, oh, can I have this thing for my birthday? They don't get it. Oh, can I have this thing for Christmas? They don't get it. But you keep on asking because you believe that eventually they're going to get it. Even if it takes a while for them to get it for you, they're still going to get it. They're still going to get it for you. And the persistence is what really makes you get it. Because if you say, oh, I want this thing for my birthday, they don't get it for your birthday, and then you give up, they might forget what you even wanted, and then you're not going to end up getting that thing. And then a biblical example of this is the case of the persistent widow in Luke 18:1-8. I'm going to open to that, and I'm going to read it. Okay, I'm reading Luke 18:1-8. Luke 18:1-8, yeah. One day, Jesus told his disciples a story to show that they should always pray and never give up. There was a judge in a certain city. He said, who neither feared God nor cared about people. A widow in that city came to him repeatedly saying, give me justice in this dispute with my enemy. The judge ignored her for a while, but finally he said to himself, I don't fear God or care about people, but this woman is driving me crazy. I'm going to see that she gets justice because she's wearing me out with her constant request. Then the Lord said, learn a lesson from this unjust judge. Even he rendered a just decision in the end. So don't you think that God will surely give justice to his chosen people who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will grant justice for them quickly. But when the Son of Man returns, how many will he find on the earth who still have faith? So in this case, we can see that the judge, it was an unjust judge. It said that he did not fear God nor regard man. So this unjust judge gave in and gave this woman justice because she was persistent. Not because this woman was better than anybody else. Not because this woman had something that other people didn't have. It's because she was persistent. Maybe other people asked the judge, oh, can you please give me justice? But then the judge was like, no, I'm not going to give you justice. And then they said, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to ask again. But this woman kept going. And it said, the judge said, this woman is driving me crazy. I'm going to see that she gets justice because she's wearing me out with her constant requests. And then after that, it said that God is more just than this man. If we go to him and we ask him and we cry out and give him our request, he will surely answer us if we're persistent and we keep going day and night. There's many examples in the Bible of people that were persistent and kept on asking God for their request and then finally achieved it. One of these things is Hannah. Can we open to 1 Samuel verse 1, 9 to verse 1? 1 Samuel verse 1. Yeah, chapter 1, verse 1. Thanks. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to be reading from verse 3. Each year, Elican would travel to Shiloh to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of heaven's armies at the tabernacle. The priests of the Lord at that time were the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas. On the day Elkanah presented his sacrifice, he would give portions of meat to Peninnah and each of her children. And though he loved Hannah, he would only give her one portion because the Lord had given her no children. So Peninnah would taunt Hannah and make fun of her because the Lord had kept her from having children. Year after year, it was the same. Peninnah would taunt Hannah as they went to the tabernacle. Each time, Hannah would be reduced to tears and will not even eat. So from this, we can see the problem. Hannah does not have children, and Peninnah keeps taunting her. She wants children, but she's not getting it. But one thing I want to point out is that it says year after year this thing would happen. So we know that year after year, Hannah was going to the tabernacle asking for children. She wasn't getting it. Peninnah would taunt her, and then she would cry and be in tears because she didn't get her children. But I want to just highlight that. It said year after year she would go. And I'm going to read from verse 9 now. Once after a sacrificial meal at Shiloh, Hannah got up and went to pray. Eli the priest was sitting at his customary place beside the entrance of the tabernacle. Hannah was in deep anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to God. And she made this vow, O Lord of heaven's armies, if you would look upon my sorrow and answer my prayer and give me a son, then I will go back to you. He will be yours for your entire lifetime. And as a sign, he has been dedicated to the Lord. His hair will never be cut. So you could see that even though those things happened, she still prayed to God and she was still hopeful that she would receive her child. And I'm going to read verse from 12 to 18. So then it says, as she was praying to the Lord, Eli watched her, seeing her lips moving but not hearing a sound. He thought she had been drinking. Must you come here drunk? He demanded. Throw away your wine. No, sir, she replied. I haven't been drinking wine or anything stronger, but I am very discouraged, and I was pouring out my heart to the Lord. Don't think I am a wicked woman, for I have been praying out of great anguish and sorrow. In that case, Eli said, go in peace. May the Lord of Israel grant the request you have asked him. Oh, thank you, sir, she exclaimed. Then she went back and began to eat again, and she was no longer sad. So you can see that Eli the priest even went up to her and said, oh, why are you drinking, when she was praying to God? But she still didn't say, oh, that's it. Even the priest thinks I'm crazy, I'm going to stop. She said, no. And then she told the priest her cry. And then the priest said, oh, don't worry, go in peace. And then she went and ate because she believed that what the priest said would be true. And I'm going to read verse 20. And it says, and in due time she gave birth to a son named Samuel, for she said, I asked the Lord for him. So we could see after all her persistence, after going year after year to the tabernacle, despite being bullied by Peninnah, and despite what Eli said, she still went year after year and hopes of getting her child. And in verse 20, you could see that her persistence and her prayers paid off. And then it said that she had a son named Samuel. That says, because I asked the Lord for him, and she asked the Lord, and he gave it to her. Another great example of somebody who was thrown down and didn't seem to be very hopeful, but was still persistent and determined to reach their goals is the blind man of Bartimaeus. Could we please open to Mark 10:46? Mark 10:46. Is everybody there? Everybody's there? Okay. Mark 10:46, and it says, Then they reached Jericho, and Jesus and his disciples left town. A large crowd followed him. A blind beggar named Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, was sitting beside the road. When Bartimaeus heard that Jesus of Nazareth was nearby, he began to shout, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. So we could see the blind man. This was a blind man. They even said that he was a blind beggar. This was someone that we would look at him and we'd think, oh, this man's nothing. This man, he's blind, he's a beggar, he doesn't have any money. What is this man? But then it says that Jesus of Nazareth was coming into the town, and then he saw it, and then he starts saying, Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me. He started crying. He started pleading. This could be when we go to God in prayer. This might be in a time when we are dejected, we don't feel like anything. But then we cry unto Jesus and said, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, have mercy on me. Then after that, what did people say? People said, be quiet. Many people yelled at him, but he only shouted louder, Son of David, have mercy on me. So we could see that there were even people, even this man was trying to seek his miracle. He was trying to get his miracle. But then people told him to be quiet. They're trying to shut him down. But he cried even louder. So in those times when we think, oh, we're not going to get anything, and there's even people making fun of us. There's people trying to throw us down. That's the time when we should cry louder to God, because that's what our miracle is about to happen. So when Jesus stopped and heard him, he stopped and said, tell him to come here. So they called the blind man. Cheer up, they said. Come on, he is calling you. Bartimaeus threw aside his coat, jumped up, and came to Jesus. What do you want me to do? Jesus asked. My rabbi, the blind man said, I want to see. And Jesus said to him, go, for your faith has healed you. Instantly the man could see, and he followed Jesus down the road. So after he was dejected, and after people told him to be quiet, God heard him, Jesus heard him, and he said, come here. And that's when he received his miracle. I pray that Jesus will tell people to come here, and so that we can receive our miracle in the mighty name of Jesus. And so after that, you could see that he was able to see. And it said instantly he could see. He received his blessing, and it said that faith has made you whole. His faith and his persistence and his determination to reach his goal is what made him to be able to see and regain his sight. Another example is the woman with the issue of blood. I'm not going to read this. I'm just going to summarize it and say what happened. So this woman, she was bleeding out for 12 years. That's 12 years. Said that she was going to doctors, she was going to hospital, she was asking them, oh, can you please heal me of this? Nothing happened. 12 years she had this issue, she had this sickness, but that did not stop her. When Jesus came, what did she say? She saw Jesus and she said, if I may touch the hem of his garments, I shall be made whole. She didn't sit there and sulk in her sickness. She didn't sit there. She saw Jesus and she saw an opportunity to become whole. She said, if I may touch the hem of his garment, I shall be made whole. And then when Jesus came, she touched the hem of his garment, and Jesus said, who touched me? Who touched me? Because he felt that. He said, who touched me? And then the woman said, oh, it was me that touched you. And that's when she became whole, after she was determined. And after, even though there was a huge crowd again surrounding Jesus. It must have been very hard for her to try and go up to Jesus and try and touch him when there's a huge crowd surrounding him. But that didn't stop her. She saw it, and then she went inside that crowd, and then she touched the hem of Jesus' garment, and then she was made whole. So these situations were of people that were dejected but were still determined to get their prayers. But now I want to look at a different case study, this case study of Daniel, because this one is different. God had already answered his prayer. Daniel was praying. I'm going to read that. It's in Daniel chapter 10, verse 2. Daniel chapter 10, verse 2. And it said, "When this vision came to me, I, Daniel, had been in mourning for 3 whole weeks. All that time I had eaten no rich food, no meat or wine crossed my lips, and I used no fragrant lotions until those 3 weeks had passed." So you could see in this one, Daniel was fasting for 3 weeks. He did not eat anything. He did not drink anything. There was something that he wanted God to answer. He had a prayer that he wanted God to answer. And he did it for 3 weeks. That's persistence. He did it for 21 days. He was fasting and he was praying for God to answer his prayer. And then we're going to go to verse 12, 13, and 14. I'm going to read those. Then he said, "Don't be afraid, Daniel." This is God talking to Daniel. He said, "Don't be afraid. Since the first day you began to pray for understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your request has been heard in heaven. I have come to answer to your prayer. But for 21 days, the prince of the kingdom of Persia blocked my way. Then Michael, one of the archangels, came to help me, and I left there with the spirit of the prince in the kingdom of Persia. Now I am here to explain what happened to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time yet to come." So Daniel was praying 21 days. He was praying, he was fasting, he was asking God to answer his prayers, to give him wisdom, to humble him. Nothing happened. 21 days that he thought nothing had happened. But we can see that God had answered his prayers. His prayers had been answered. There was a prince of Persia trying to block the answer to his prayer and trying to stop it from happening. But Daniel did not give up. He kept praying, and that's when God came to him and was able to explain to him. The prince of Persia in our life might not be a physical person. It might be like character defaults. It might be, "Oh, I had answered your prayers, but your stubbornness did not let you get it. I had answered your prayers, but your disobedience did not let me get it." This prince of Persia was the one blocking his answers to his prayers. But his determination and when he kept on praying to God, God was able to reveal that to him. And the angel Michael, was able to stop it and allow his prayers to come through. So in order for us to reach the answers to our prayers, we need to be determined, and we need to keep on praying, regardless of if we're not getting answers to our prayers. Because it might not be that God's not answering our prayers. It might just be something else that's blocking it. And if we give up, we won't receive that blessing, and we won't be able to receive the miracle that God has in store for us. So the last one I want to highlight on is the case of Jacob. In Genesis 32, verse 24. Can everyone open to Genesis 32, verse 24? I'm going to be reading to 29. So Genesis 32, 24 to 39. "This left Jacob all alone in the camp, and a man came and wrestled with him until the dawn began to break. When the man saw that he would not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it out of its socket." So Jacob was wrestling with a man, and this man was actually God that he was wrestling with. He was wrestling with an angel, and he was wrestling with him. But when this, when we're wrestling with God, it might not be physically. We might be wrestling in prayer and we might be wrestling in prayer. But Jacob did not give up. He kept on wrestling with God until he got the answer to his prayer, until God finally changed his name. So from Jacob to Israel. So he finally got his prayer, the answer to his prayer, after wrestling with God for a long time. So that, I think my time's running out. So I just have a prayer point that I want everyone to pray. So my prayer point goes, Father, help me to be determined when I pray to you. Don't let me lose my determination and miss my blessing in a For in Jesus' mighty name, we've prayed. Amen.